Let me say something that will make a lot of people uncomfortable, and that's exactly why it matters. Most people are not struggling financially because they're unlucky. They're not behind because the economy hates them, and they're not broke because they didn't work hard enough. They're struggling because they've been making the same quiet mistakes for years, mistakes that feel normal, feel harmless, and are socially accepted. That's what makes them dangerous. Nobody warns you about these decisions. In fact, society rewards them. You get praised for buying a nicer car. You get congratulated for upgrading your lifestyle. You're told you deserve it. And slowly, without realizing it, you trade your future for comfort. Here's the brutal truth. Most people don't fail financially in one big moment. They fail through 1,000 small decisions, each one justified, each one defended, each one repeated. And by the time they finally ask, "Why am I still stuck?" the damage is already done. If that sounds harsh, good, because soft advice keeps people poor. What you're about to hear isn't popular, it isn't comforting, but it's real. And if you stay until the end of this video, you'll understand why some people quietly build wealth while others work their entire lives and still feel trapped. I've been watching the same pattern repeat for decades. I've seen people earning average salaries slowly build financial freedom, and I've seen people making six figures live paycheck to paycheck. Same country, same economy, same opportunities, completely different outcomes. The difference isn't intelligence, it's not education, and it's not luck. The difference is how they treat money. Most people treat money like a reward, something they've earned, something they should enjoy immediately. Wealthy people treat money like a tool that either works for them or works against them. And the moment you understand that difference, everything changes. The first mistake most people make is confusing looking successful with being successful. A nicer car, a bigger lifestyle, more upgrades, all justified by one dangerous sentence: "I deserve it." Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. If you need debt to maintain your lifestyle, you don't own that lifestyle. It owns you. A car doesn't make you wealthy. A brand doesn't make you successful. And appearances don't create freedom. The moment you buy something to impress people who don't pay your bills, you've already lost control. New cars are the perfect example. The second you drive one off the lot, it loses value. Not slowly, immediately. Thousands of dollars disappear simply because ownership changed. And yet people celebrate it. They take loans, they pay interest, they finance depreciation. That's not convenience, that's financial self-sabotage. Financially disciplined people think differently. They don't ask, "Can I afford the payment?" They ask, "Does this help me build freedom?" Poor decisions feel good today. Smart decisions feel uncomfortable but pay you back later. And most people choose comfort. That first choice sets the tone for everything that follows. Because once you justify one bad decision, the next one becomes easier. And that leads directly to the second trap, the one society calls responsible: buying more house than you need. People are told from a young age that owning a home is the ultimate sign of success. But here's what they don't tell you. If something takes money out of your pocket every single month, it is not an asset, no matter how nice it looks. Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs. The bigger the house, the bigger the pressure. Banks understand this perfectly. That's why they approve you for the maximum amount possible, not because it's good for you, but because it's profitable for them. Banks are not your financial advisor. They are your creditor. And creditors want you in debt for decades. When people stretch themselves to buy the biggest house they qualify for, they lock themselves into stress. They trade flexibility for square footage, freedom for furniture. Then they wonder why they can't invest. Disciplined people understand something most people miss. You don't build wealth by maxing out what you can afford. You build wealth by creating margin. Margin gives you options. Options create power.
Smart people buy what they need, not what impresses others. They live below their means while quietly building above-average futures. And once you understand this, you start seeing the real enemy: comfort spending. Daily convenience feels harmless. Eating out, delivery apps, impulse purchases. Each one feels small. Each one feels justified. But money doesn't disappear emotionally. It disappears mathematically. Small leaks sink ships. A few dollars here, a few dollars there. Over time, it becomes tens of thousands. People say they don't have money to invest while spending money on things that vanish in hours. Convenience today steals freedom tomorrow. Wealth isn't built through dramatic sacrifices. It's built through boring discipline repeated consistently. And boring is exactly what most people avoid. This is where the divide begins. Some people choose comfort, others choose control. And once that choice is made, everything else follows.
Because now we're not just talking about personal habits. We're talking about the system that quietly benefits when you stay exactly where you are. Here's something most people never stop to think about. Almost everything around you is designed to make you spend, not build. Banks, advertisers, credit card companies, subscription-based businesses. They don't make money when you're disciplined. They make money when you're distracted. And distraction is incredibly profitable. Let's talk about debt, because this is where most people get trapped for decades without realizing it. Debt itself is not evil. That's the part people misunderstand. Debt is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used to build or to destroy. The problem is not the debt. The problem is what the debt is used for. When disciplined people use debt, they use it to acquire things that generate income or grow in value. Businesses, investments, assets that work while they sleep. When undisciplined people use debt, they use it to fund lifestyle, cars they don't need, houses larger than necessary, spending patterns that impress others but weaken their future. And here's the dangerous part. Both types of debt feel the same at the beginning. Same paperwork, same approval, same monthly payment structure. But the outcomes are completely different. One creates freedom. The other creates obligation. Banks don't explain this difference to you. Why would they? A customer who stays in debt for 30 years is far more valuable than one who becomes financially independent. So people are encouraged to borrow as much as possible, as early as possible. You're approved for this much. You qualify for that. You can afford it. Notice something important. They never ask whether it helps your future. They only care whether you can make the payment. And this mindset infects people. They stop asking, "Is this smart?" and start asking, "Can I get approved?" That's how the trap closes. Once your income is committed to payments, you lose flexibility. And flexibility is the foundation of wealth. Without flexibility, every unexpected expense becomes a crisis. A car repair feels like an emergency. A medical bill creates panic. A job loss becomes catastrophic. Not because the expense is large, but because there's no margin. Margin is what protects you. Margin gives you breathing room. Margin gives you power. But margin disappears the moment your lifestyle expands to match your income. This is why raises don't make people wealthy. Promotions don't make people free. More money simply increases the size of the mistakes unless behavior changes. That's why you see people making high incomes who are still stressed, still anxious, still trapped. They upgraded everything except their discipline. And that leads to the next invisible force keeping people stuck: time. Most people dramatically underestimate the power of time, especially when it comes to money. They think in months, they think in years. Wealth is built in decades. Every dollar you spend today has a future version. It could grow or it could disappear, but either way, it's gone from your control. When you spend money on something that doesn't grow, you're not just losing the money,
You're losing what that money could have become. That's opportunity cost. An opportunity cost is the quiet killer of wealth. It doesn't hurt immediately. It doesn't cause drama. It just slowly erases possibilities. A few $100s a month doesn't feel like much, but invested consistently over decades, it becomes life-changing. The tragedy is that most people give that power away without realizing it. They trade future freedom for present comfort, again and again and again, until one day they wake up and realize time has done its work, just not in their favor. Here's something else most people don't want to hear. Motivation is overrated. You don't build wealth by feeling inspired. You build wealth by building systems. Systems don't rely on willpower. They rely on structure. Automatic investing, automatic saving, clear rules for spending. Wealthy people don't wake up every day and decide to be disciplined. They remove the decision altogether. They design their environment so the right choice becomes the easy choice. Most people do the opposite. They surround themselves with temptation and rely on self-control. That almost never works, because willpower is finite. Discipline backed by structure is not. This is why habits matter more than goals. Goals feel good. Habits get results. And this brings us to something deeply uncomfortable. Most people don't actually want financial freedom. They want the appearance of success without the discipline required to sustain it. They want the rewards without the restraint. But money doesn't work that way. Money is brutally honest. It doesn't care about intentions. It doesn't care about effort. It only responds to behavior. That's why two people can earn the same income and end up in completely different places. One builds assets quietly. The other builds obligations loudly. One gains options. The other gains stress. And the difference is not traumatic. It's boring. It's saying no when no one is watching. It's choosing restraint when indulgence is easier. It's thinking long-term in a short-term world. This is where most people fall off, not because it's impossible, but because it's uncomfortable. And comfort is expensive. It costs you options. It costs you time. It costs you freedom. And now we arrive at the turning point. Because once you understand this system, once you see how habits, debt, time, and psychology work together, you can no longer claim ignorance. At that point, there are only two paths. You continue doing what feels good today and accept the consequences later, or you take control now and change the trajectory of your future. There is no third option. In the final part, we're going to talk about control. Not motivation, not hype, control. The specific shifts disciplined people make to break out of this cycle, and why most people never do. Because understanding the problem is only half the battle. What actually matters is what you do next.
Now that you understand how people get trapped through habits, debt, comfort, and time, we need to talk about the only thing that actually changes outcomes: control. Not motivation, not excitement, not inspiration. Control. Most people think wealth is about making more money. It isn't. Wealth is about controlling what already passes through your hands. If you can't control money at a small scale, more money will not save you. It will only amplify the problem. That's why lottery winners often end up broke. That's why athletes earning millions still go bankrupt. That's why high earners feel just as stressed as low earners. Income without control creates chaos. So let's talk about what control actually looks like in real life. First, disciplined people operate with rules, not feelings. They don't ask themselves, do I feel like spending this? They ask, does this align with my rules? Rules remove emotion from decisions. For example, a rule like, I don't finance things that lose value. That one rule alone eliminates dozens of bad decisions automatically. Another rule, I pay myself first before spending anything. That rule ensures investing happens no matter how the month feels. Another rule, I increase my investments every time my income increases. That rule prevents lifestyle inflation, the silent killer of progress. Rules don't require motivation, they require commitment. Most people rely on feelings, and feelings change. Control doesn't. Second, disciplined people separate identity from consumption. They don't define themselves by what they own. They define themselves by what they control. Their confidence doesn't come from appearances, it comes from options. Options to walk away, options to say no, options to choose time over money. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are not afraid of being broke. They're afraid of being seen as less successful. That fear drives spending. That spending destroys control. When you stop trying to impress people who aren't funding your future, everything changes. Third, disciplined people understand delayed gratification not as sacrifice, but as leverage. They don't think in terms of giving things up. They think in terms of exchange. I'm exchanging comfort today for freedom tomorrow. That mental shift is critical because sacrifice sounds painful, exchange sounds strategic. Every dollar not spent impulsively becomes a worker. Every dollar invested becomes leverage. Time then multiplies that leverage. This is why patience is so powerful. Patience allows compounding to do what effort alone never can. And compounding doesn't just apply to money. It applies to habits, to discipline, to decision-making. Small improvements repeated consistently create massive differences over time, but only if control is maintained. Fourth, disciplined people design their environment to support control. They don't rely on willpower. They automate. Automatic investing, automatic transfers, clear budgets, limited access to impulse spending. They remove friction from good decisions and add friction to bad ones. Most people do the opposite. They make bad decisions easy and good decisions hard. Then they wonder why they struggle. Environment always beats willpower. Always. Fifth, disciplined people are brutally honest with themselves. They don't pretend small expenses don't matter. They don't justify habits because it's not that much. They understand that consistency matters more than size. $10 wasted daily is not $10. It's a habit, and habits scale. The same honesty applies to time. They protect their time the same way they protect money, because time is the ultimate non-renewable resource. You can make more money. You cannot make more time. And every financial decision is ultimately a time decision. Will this give me more control over my future time or less? That question alone filters out most bad choices. Now let's address something that needs to be said clearly. There is no perfect moment to start. There is no ideal income level, no magic market condition, no future point where discipline suddenly becomes easy. Waiting is a decision, and waiting has a cost. Every year delayed is a year compounding works against you instead of for you. Most people wait for clarity. Disciplined people create clarity through action. They start small, they stay consistent, they adjust as they learn. Progress beats perfection every time. And here's the part most people never want to accept. You don't accidentally become wealthy. You choose it repeatedly. Through decisions no one applauds, through restraint no one sees, through patience no one celebrates. That's why so few people do it. Comfort is loud, discipline is quiet. Comfort is praised, discipline is ignored. But discipline is what wins, eventually, quietly, decisively. Now the final question. What are you going to do with what you've learned? Because information alone changes nothing. Understanding the system doesn't free you, action does. You can close this video and return to comfort, most people will, or you can take control. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. Start by identifying one habit you will change immediately, just one. Then protect that change fiercely because momentum is built through small wins stacked over time. If this series challenged you, let the algorithm know by liking this video. Leave a comment below and be honest. What's the first habit you're committing to change? And if you want more unfiltered financial truth, subscribe. This channel is not about hype, it's about control. Money doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to discipline. Make better decisions. Your future is watching.